you want to explain to us how we got here, where there's one party and
Yes.
people have to satisfy the party
Yes.
than the people that are voting for them or the general public.
That's a great summary, exactly.
How
Satisfy
did
the
we
party,
get-
not the people.
How did we get there?
So the first step, actually, which may surprise a lot of people, I think, and this is how I trace it back in California, goes back to Governor Reagan, who was the first to grant collective bargaining rights to public unions, public government unions. Now he did it when he was governor at the turn of the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and it was initially collective bargaining rights were given to the police and the firefighters, and he was trying to support these workers for the public good, who were under attack at the time. It was the 60s, and it was a supportive gesture. But actually, it started a process whereby the unions became the most powerful force in California politics. Because after Reagan did it with those categories, bit by bit, it was extended, especially by Jerry Brown when he was governor, to all state employees and then local government employees, and then you end up with a situation where you have the government unions today in California, because they sit on both sides of the negotiating table. That's why it's so pernicious. FDR, President Roosevelt, a Democrat associated with expansive government and so on, argued that government unions are unconstitutional, that it's not right to have the unions who are employed by the public sector negotiate with the government in that way. And so what you've ended up with is this incredibly powerful political bloc. They get paid by the taxpayer. They collect the dues, which are basically taxpayer money from the members of the union, and then they use it to elect politicians who give them deals and give them favors. It's totally corrupt. It's obviously corrupt. The unions spend $1 billion a year in California, political donations, $1 billion. It's
$1 billion?
$1 billion in California.
For all of the races?
Yes.
A year?
Yes, yes. It's an enormous...
Is that all in political donations?
Yes. And it's unbelievably effective. And they use it in very cynical ways to get what they want. A really good example, and we're speaking here in Orange County. So just in this last election cycle, the unions support, in a Democrat-Republican race in the state legislature, the unions supported a Republican candidate. Why? Because the Democrat candidate had dared to defy the unions by, I can't remember the exact detail, it's in the book, either writing or promoting a bill or taking a position on an issue that the unions didn't approve of. To punish this Democrat legislator in order to send a message to keep everyone else in line, they said, right, we're going to support the Republican. And everyone said, you wouldn't. Why would you do that? You don't agree with them. We're just going to send a message, keep everyone in line. Because of the arrogance of one-party rule, because they have a supermajority in the legislature, the Democrats, what does it matter if they lose one seat to a Republican if it keeps the rest of the Democrats in line? That's how arrogant they are, but also how powerful they are. They send a message. I remember the first issue that I worked on as I was getting into this whole California policy world was housing, because it's the foundational problem in many ways. It's the number one reason people are leaving California, ridiculous cost of living. And housing is the main component. We have the highest housing costs in America. The typical house price, the median house price right now, $909,000. Insane. Nearly $1 million. That means that's the median. That means half the homes in California cost more than $1 million. In the Bay Area, it's 1.7 million. Amazing. So I worked on that issue, and we can get into the policy detail, but for this part of our conversation, I'll just tell you a story, which was I actually ended up proposing a ballot initiative to fix the problem with two components: ending environmental lawsuits. They're fake environmental lawsuits under CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. 70% of those lawsuits are used to block housing. Most of them are filed by the unions, not environmental groups, unions, to extract leverage against house builders, higher wages, but not just higher wages. We all want higher wages. 4 times market rate. Union member only work sites, etc. They're called project labor agreements.
So they sue to actually get them to use the unions?
Use the unions or pay, but the 2 components usually are, they call it skilled and trained, which means you have to use these euphemisms. You have to use union members only, or prevailing wage. That's the other term, which actually means, literally 4 times as high in some cases. So that's one component of it. So one element of the ballot initiative was to remove what's known as the private right of action under CEQA. So right now, anyone can file a lawsuit under CEQA, anyone.
And stop construction.
And stop everything in its tracks. Even if a project is compliant with the actual law, you just make something up. They literally make things up. Now we're in it, let's talk about it. For example, there have been stories of people filing lawsuits on housing construction because of the fact that housing contains windows, and windows are a threat to bird life because a bird can strike a window. Stuff like this. Ridiculous. Mostly by the unions. And so the first item, the ballot initiative have 2 components, which is this issue. Again, to explain the scale of it, right now in California, there are over 1 million housing units blocked by these lawsuits. They're compliant with every other. They're compliant with CEQA.
They just have to wait to deal with this.
Yes, they're in a process, whatever, and then half the time, of course, all the time that's going on, the developers borrowing money to fund they just give up, or whatever. It takes 6 years, 12 years, 20 years. And the second component of the ballot initiative was this other aspect of the housing crisis that no one is aware of until I started digging into it, which is called impact fees. Impact fees, in theory, were, as the name suggests, a small charge to take account of the impact on a local community of building housing.
For schools, infrastructure?
No, not schools. Remember, we already pay taxes for that.
Is it for infrastructure, the city?
A park, public
Sewage
art,
or
a nice
water.
tree planting, like little extra. No, we pay the highest taxes in the country. This is not included in that. This is fees.
Is completely different.
This is not taxes. We pay property taxes for the schools. So that no one should be under any illusion here. This is on top of basic taxes. You could call it a housing tax. I think we should, because that's what it is. But it's not paid. It's paid by the developer. And you have to add it up. There's 5, and it used to be small amounts.
The consumer doesn't see it. The buyer doesn't
Exactly,
see
it goes into the house price. You have to pay it. The Turner Center in Berkeley on housing does the research. Again, the typical impact fees, when you add them all up, per unit of housing in California, $150,000.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So that's right. That just pure tax